So welcome to today's talk, the seminar. And this talk actually is related to the entrepreneurship training. So this semester we do have many speakers from different companies in the biomedical aspect, including some agriculture. So today we have the honor to invite, I should say, Sigi. I always call him because his name is really difficult to pronounce. How to pronounce? Sigi, right? Okay. So anyway, so actually same as you guys, I just know Sigi probably just last week, right? Or 1 or 2 weeks ago. So he's a very nice guy, but when I met him the first time, and actually we chat in Mandarin because he came to Taiwan since 2000, so it's already more than 20 years. So actually he has family in Taiwan, and he has a lot of experience in like biopharma things, and he has a very good CV, the resume, as you can see on the poster. So now he has his own company, more like a genetic drug development, and the business is more like not only in Taiwan but also internationally. So today he's going to share us the concept of how he really runs this kind of business and the experience he has. And so today we do have probably 1.5 hours for the Sigi to share his experience and all his concept. So we try to encourage everyone, if you have any question during his talk, and you can really ask me, have more interaction with him. And so this is the purpose of this course or the seminar series of this semester. So let's have a big applause for the Sigi. Okay, welcome.
Good morning. Very, very happy to be here today. Now, in my experience, a lot of these university classes and lectures always focus on the science. Right? I am actually a scientist. I started out in pharmacy. I have a bachelor in pharmacy and a master's in pharmaceutical science. I am actually enrolled in a PhD, but I never go to class, so maybe we'll never finish.
You can join an interview.
But what I realize often is, especially now when people want to start their own business, if you only look at the science, that's not enough. Right? You actually need to understand the market. Right? It's sales and marketing, which I think is very important. So today my lecture is not about the science, I guess you're all better than I am, but it's more about business, right? Commercials. So yeah, I'm from Austria, but I came as a student, as an exchange student in the year 2000 to Taiwan, and I basically never left. I now am the founder of 2 companies. One is called Anya Biopharm, which is a company developing new drugs, and one is BioFrontier, which is a company more focused on Taiwan, doing like specialty and generic drugs. And before that, I was the CEO of Asia in Alvogen, which is a company with $300 million in sales, 2,000 people. And before that, I was the general manager for Taiwan and Singapore here in Taiwan, in some others. And yeah, my name is rather complicated. It's called Siegfried Schließer, but you can just call me Sigi. Okay, so we start. So today is about the market, right? So the first one, what is the first thing you should think about if you think about the market? How big is it, right? So I try to be interactive. I'm not sure how we can do it with the online. Maybe you can chat, maybe write in the chat. But how big is the pharmaceutical market?
The money or the...
That's a good point, right? So you see, one question leads to more, right? So how big is it? What do you mean, right? Like, what mean value, you mean volume, right? Again, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to make money, right? So you don't really care about the volume, right? You don't care the number of prescriptions, you care about the value, right? Now, because this is an international course, right, let's just use US dollar, right? It's fair, right? So what's the market size of the pharmaceutical market worldwide in US dollar?
The whole world, right?
Whole world, yeah? Let's just start with the whole world first.
7 billion.
Several billion. Okay. Do we have someone in the chat saying something?
Anyone online?
Okay. I show you the answer. It's 1 trillion.
Wow.
1 trillion US dollar. Okay. Well, so do you understand what that means? 1 trillion?
It's 1,000 billion.
It's 1,000 billion, but 1 billion is already huge, right? So, a lot of times we understand $1,000, right? Or we might understand like $1 million, right? But 1 trillion is kind of difficult to grasp, right? So important, I say always, you need to compare it to things, right? Compare with what can we compare the pharmaceutical market with? What could you use to compare?
So the 1 trillion is annual.
Yes. Every year, $1 trillion of pharmaceutical products sold. In Chinese, it's 1兆美金.
It's 1/3 the US budget, annual budget.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good point, right? You can compare it to a governmental budget, right? So yeah, the US budget is 3 trillion, right? 3 trillion. So it's 1/3 of the. Actually, that's if you look at the GDP of the US, 15% of the US GDP is in healthcare. Right? And normally out of that, maybe 10% is pharmaceuticals. Right? So that's a good one. So we have France and Japan also here, right? We have Taiwan. I have a lot of information about Taiwan. I was a little bit lazy to look up on Japan and France, but maybe people can help. The Taiwan GDP is 700 billion.
700 billion. Wow.
Okay? So the pharmaceutical market worldwide is bigger than Taiwan. Okay. French GDP, I guess, must be around 2 trillion. Right? So 2 trillion, that means half the size of France, right? France is enormously huge, right? Yeah. And Japan, I guess, would be 3 or 4 billion, right? So yeah, it's quite big, right? Another one we could compare is other industries, right? What other industry we would want to compare? One I like to compare is food. Food, because we need to eat, right?
Yeah.
Food should be big, right? We cannot survive without food for not a lot of days, right? So food production tends to be a very large market, right? Food is 5 trillion. 5 trillion. Right? So for me, it's huge, right? Food is, we eat every day, we don't take medication. Not every person takes medication every day.
Yeah.
Right? So it's only 5 times smaller than the food market, right? Automobile is 3 trillion. 3 trillion. Automobile, like cars, right? Actually, again, one for Taiwan. Semiconductors is 800 billion.
800 billion.
Yes. The semiconductor market, Taiwan, global market for semiconductors is smaller than the pharmaceutical market. Okay. Well, so next, so we now know the global pharmaceutical market, right? Now it would be, of course, interesting to see how it splits, right? How can it split? It can split by country, it can split by therapeutic area, you can split by chronic care, acute care, right? You can split by high growth, low growth. But for this one, I make it simple. Let's see different countries, right? Japan, France, Taiwan, and US, right? So if I can ask the French participants to look up the French market and text it, the Japanese to write Japan, and the Taiwanese to find the Taiwanese market size, right? And everyone look for the US market size. Can you Google, right, or whatever search engine you use?
Google your home countries.
See if you find information, the pharmaceutical market size in US dollar for your respective country. Tell me if someone wrote in the chat. Should be very quick. On Friday, it took me like 1 minute to find the.
So any answer from students or any audience? 不然你们可以帮忙讲这个单词。确实。
They want to utilize again. They want to hear a question again.
Okay. What is the pharmaceutical market size in US dollar in those countries? In Japan, in France, in Taiwan, and US? I want it in US dollar, not in
US dollar.
Otherwise, you cannot compare them. So I got a Taiwan answer about 2.4 billion. Okay.
How about Japan, France? About how many times?
Not yet.
Google.
Yeah, right in Google, pharmaceutical market size Japan. In mine it comes on top, so it should be rather easy.
So United States would be around 3.8 billion.
US
380 billion. What's that?
billion.
Not 3.8. If Taiwan is 2, it can't be US 3.8.
台湾有2.4，美国只有3.6。
billion 是10。
billion 是10。
哦，那就是380。
So 380. Yeah, okay, I take that number. 380.
380.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have Japan.
Japan market is roughly
30 billion.
US dollars. 30 billion.
30 billion. Okay.
France?
And France?
so this 60 billion.
60. Okay. Well, so another learning, these numbers are all estimates, right? The markets are too big to exactly know the market size, right? So one important thing is that different researchers, if they use a different methodology, they might come up with a different number. Right? So now I did not ask you to go for one specific methodology, right? So I can't really verify where it was from. But I just now did. I know one company which is specialized on the pharma market, right? They give a panel on all the countries. So we know we can compare those numbers between each other, Now, if you look at those, the Japan market is 100 billion US dollar. 100 billion US dollar. The French market is 20 billion US dollar. Taiwan, sorry, I got the same number, right? Taiwan is 2.4 billion US dollar. And the US is 480 billion US dollar. Okay, so if you look at those, well, what comes to your mind? The first thing, what would you think about?
I would like to sell my product in the USA.
Ah, I like that one. Yes, for sure, right? Definitely, if I see this form, where would I want to go sell, right? Of course, in the US, right? I will definitely not want to sell it here, right? Right? That's
So
all.
we have potential.
That's a good question on potential, right? So, of course, smaller markets can grow, but I could easily kill your answer by saying, look at history, right?
Yeah.
If it has not been more than 20 years, Taiwan's population is aging, but not that much, right? It likely is not going to become the US, right? But what else do you see? Do you know the population sizes of these countries?
Yeah.
How big is Japan? How many people who live in Japan?
140 million. 日本他们
Japanese could answer, right? I know it, but the Japanese could answer us.
知道台湾的话，
So Japan is like 120, 130 million people, right? US is 330 million people, right? So the relation, it's like 3 times bigger, right? Yeah, okay, kind of makes sense. Maybe US is still a little bit bigger, right? If you just take out population, right? But France and Japan is interesting. France is like 60 million, right? France is like 60, maybe 65 million people, right? And Japan is 120, 130, right? But wow, the market is 5 times bigger for 2 times the population, right? That's an interesting question, right? Like why would that be? And then of course Taiwan. Huh? Taiwan is 2.4. Taiwan is 20 million people, right? 20, 24,
24.
right? France is 60, so it's like 3 times difference, right? But market is 10 times difference, right? So can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes,
Yes?
better.
Okay.
Better.
Right? So again, that's another question to ask, right? Why would that be, right? Again, there is a little bit of an issue of the research you do in terms of pricing levels. What does it mean? If I'm the manufacturer, right, and Professor Shen is a wholesaler, right, and you students are the customers, right? If I sell it to you customers and you look at my sales, or if I sell it to the wholesaler and the wholesaler has a markup and sells it to the customer, or the panel looks at the customer sales, the same product price will be different, right? So there's a little bit of that where different price levels will have different prices, right? But if you look at it, eventually, in such large numbers, all these things don't really make much of a difference. But out of the $1 trillion US dollar global market, nearly half is only the US. Yeah. But we all know that the US does not have half the population, right? It's like, where's the big country? China. China actually is the second now. China is the second biggest market. That's 10% of the global market. Japan is the third, 7%. Then it's France, and then it's Germany, then it's France, right? But France is already only 3% of the global market, right? And this one for me, this is one which I think this is really, really, really important for anyone to understand. And one student already said it. If you want to develop a pharmaceutical product, forget anything else in the US. right? If you look at this, it's clear, right? Half the market is only in one country, right? But again, it's strange that US is not so much bigger in terms of population, right? Why would it be so big, right? What can you imagine? Why can it be so big? Why can the US market be so much bigger?
In Taiwan, we have the health insurance, so that our market value in the pharmaceutical product will be very small. But USA don't have that system, so that their products price can be very high.
Okay, that's the point, right? It's about pricing, right? Well, there's two. A market size is very simple, right? It's a volume times the price, right? So either the Americans take many more medications than the rest, right? Or they take about the same, but the price is much higher, right? And there's a little bit of both. They also like to take a lot of medication, but it's more a pricing issue, right? I have another exercise because I realized if I just tell you that it's not as good. There's one treatment, it's called Harvoni. Harvoni actually is an amazing drug. It will cure hepatitis C within 12 weeks. You take this medication for 12 weeks, your hepatitis C is gone. Okay, okay, sorry. Don't show you the answer. Now please check what's in your country, in Taiwan, in France, in Japan, and again help me check out for the US. What's the price per tablet of Harvoni? You cannot hear?
Yeah.
Okay.
车号 TBH 109的车主，请尽速将您的车子移开。来宾车号 TBH 109的车主，请尽速将您的车子移开。谢谢您的合作。
And again, use US dollar, so any Japanese yen or euro converted into US dollars, so we have something we can compare. Nothing yet?
Yeah.
$80,000 in Taiwan.
80,000.
80,000.
I think it's $135.
135 US dollar
125
in where?
in Taiwan.
In Taiwan per tablet.
Per tablet.
Okay. Okay, so we have something like $100 per tablet. That's already expensive if you look at it, right? One tablet costs $100 US, right? If you,
Oh, 1,000.
huh?
1,000.
US dollar.
Yeah, it's there's one more one in the front, so it's $1,125 US
In where?
in Taiwan.
That's Taiwan dollar. In 1,000 是台币啊。
Is it $10 US?
No.
This is someone saying 220 USD per month in Japan.
Okay. Okay, I think I got to the answer. Again, it's pricing sometimes can be a little bit complicated in terms of if you see the whole treatment price or the tablet price. But if you really look what the consumer or an insurance pays in the US, it's $1,000 US per tablet. Okay? And in Taiwan, the same medication, it's 1,000 Taiwan dollar per tablet. Right? it's no, $2,000, sorry, 75 US dollar. France and Japan are around $500. Okay. There's some certain discounts, right? So pharmaceutical companies try to hide their actual price, right? So if you want to read up on that, actually my wife is doing that for a big pharmaceutical company. She has a team of 20 people just negotiating prices. These are the list prices, so yeah, there could be different discounts. But that's around from a global perspective, kind of, that's about it. Right? You have the US tends to be in the pricing range 2 to 3 times higher than Japan and Western European countries. And Taiwan tends to be very, very strong in negotiating prices. Taiwan tends to be one of the lowest prices for pretty much any pharmaceutical product. So this is actually this is a work I did myself. So I have a panel where I have all the pharmaceutical products sold globally, and I had looked at the global pharmaceutical or the US pharmaceutical sales, and we have the volume sold, and we come up with the price index. Right? So what's a global average price of a pharmaceutical product in the US? What's the global price in Italy, in China, in Brazil? And then I put 100 as for US, right? So if the price index in the US is 100, right? That's just all the pharmaceutical products sold in the US divided through the volume it's sold. That's 100, right? Then Italy is at 38. France is at 22, Japan is at 20. Actually, those are very similar, right? I don't even have Taiwan here because Taiwan is like 10% of that, right? Okay, so remember we went from pharma market, right? We saw first that the US is very high. We asked why is it high? We kind of understand now that it is because of pricing, right? So what's the next question I should ask myself? Why are the prices so high, right? If we can within 1 minute on Google find out that the prices in other markets are so low, right? Why is it still so expensive in the US, right? Why? Again, a question. What can you think about, right? Because well, that's actually we're all scientists here, but if you're studying an MBA, the first thing people will tell you that the pricing will level out, right? Any arbitrary pricing differences in a market which is transparent will level out, right? If Professor Shen will go to a little shop and gets his neuromin for 300, right? And the students will tell him there's another shop over there which is really very good and it sells for 50. What will Professor Shen do? He will go to the 50 store, right? Well, why would I pay 300 if it's the same? Well, of course, if that one is so much better, right? That's a premium brand, but the same product, like Haboni, it's the same product, right? There's no qualitative difference. Pricing should level out, right? So, well, why does it not level out? What do you think?
Insurance policy.
Is it because of the public, the health insurance, USA don't have the public system, but Taiwan has it, so the price is so different?
Yeah. That's definitely one of the reasons. The first I would want to say is because in pharmaceuticals you need to get a license, right? You need to have a license to sell, right? It's called marketing authorization, Chinese 许可证. Right? So I cannot actually, if I'm a patient in the US, easily buy the product in France, right? If you can go on Amazon, right? My kids every day, they will tell me, Dad, can you buy this? And on Amazon, you don't really care what's the geography, right? You can get it from China, you get it from the US, right? Because normal products, like a cup, there's no regulation behind it, right? But pharmaceuticals, every country, or EU maybe is like one region, has its own regulation. You have to have the language on it, right? In France, you have to have it in French. In Japan, you have to have it in Japanese, right? So even Harmony, I tell you in English, it's the same, but the packaging in Japan and the packaging in the US will look very different, right? And the patient will not be able to quickly understand that. And actually, I'm buying medication here and then send it to the US for my sister. Right? Because I know, right? I'm a pharmacist, I know it's the same thing, but my sister will not dare to buy somewhere else, right? Because as a patient, you want to know that it's good, right? It's a medication, right? So you would buy from your trusted source, right? So that's the first. And then, of course, the second one is the system, right? How are prices made? And very importantly, who pays for it, right? When we go back to this noodle shop, right? Professor Shen would pay for himself, right? Only if his wife goes with him, she won't care about the price because he still has to pay, right? So the first level is that if you pay for yourself, you're more price conscious than if someone else pays for you, right? I think everyone can. If I go on a date and we go Dutch, I might go different than if I know it's paid by the company, right? If the company pays for it, yeah, that's okay, right? Like I can, right? But if it's only me, I would eat what I can afford, right? Now, in pharmaceuticals, actually, it's very, very few times that the person who makes the decision on which product to use and the person who pays for it. Do you understand? If you go to the doctor, right, no matter what you have, if you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, if you have cancer, you don't make the decision what medication you get. Who makes the decision? The doctor, right? So the doctor makes it, but does the doctor pay for it? No, right? Do you pay for it? That depends, right? In certain markets, you maybe have to pay, right? So in a lot of countries, like in India, right, we don't really have health insurance. There, it's very often that the patient has to pay himself. So there it could happen that, yes, the doctor gives you something very expensive, and the patient says, sorry, can't afford it. Right? But in France, in Japan, in Taiwan, in the US, it's very, very rare that you would have to pay yourself. Right? But so who pays for it?
Insurance company or government.
Right. Someone has to pay, right? It's just because I don't pay doesn't mean it's nobody's paying, because the pharmaceutical companies are profit making, right? So we will not give it for free, right? So someone has to pay, right? Now, how do we go from that? There is a lot of differences then how transparent and how easy the flow of funds is. Right? So again, I apologize, Japan and France, maybe I think it's very interesting for you guys to actually look up how your insurance system works. Because every country has its own peculiarities. I would assume that Japan is rather similar to Taiwan, because Taiwan actually learned from Japan, right? But if I look at the US is hugely complicated. Yeah. And if you ever follow the news on pharmaceutical pricing in the US, basically the first sentence you will hear, pharmaceutical prices in the US are too high. And second one is saying, but it's too complicated. Right? I would argue that's also part of the system, right? Nobody wants the prices to really go down, and saying it's complicated is actually a good excuse, right? But if you really look at it, so we have the manufacturers, right? So if you develop a product and you manufacture it, you are the manufacturer, right? And you would basically sell it to the drug wholesaler. Because US is big, right? There's 300 million people of an enormous country, so it's in Taiwan a lot of companies could sell directly to the hospital. I in Taiwan, my company, we just have a logistics company. I tell them sell it to Taiwan. And it's very simple, right? But in the US it's impossible, so I have to go to a wholesaler. And the wholesaler goes to the pharmacy. And then the patient goes to the pharmacy with his prescription, right? And he gets the medication, right? So that's the flow of the product, right? Manufacturer ships it to the wholesaler, ships it to the pharmacy, pharmacy gives it to the patient, right? But we just said that actually the doctor makes the decision, right? Did you see the doctor here? No, we didn't see it, right? And we said that the patient is not paying for it. Did you see who is paying for it? Also not, right? So how's that happening? So first of all, the doctor is even not in this, right? The doctor is not even here. The doctor will give the medication. So how does the doctor make a decision on medication? It's the manufacturer who will educate the doctor, right? He will make promotion, marketing, telling the doctors about the product, right? Trying to convince the doctor that for certain patients this is the best, right? The doctor will price it, the doctor will write a script. Now in the US actually they don't care. The doctors really don't even know the price, right? Like, you know, the doctor just says, I want to give the best medication to my patient, right? And the insurance should take care of it, right? Even in Taiwan, actually, Taiwan doctors normally would not be really concerned, right? Only when all of a sudden the prices are so high and the administration would start telling doctors, hey, you're using all the expensive medication, maybe you should think about it. But from a very naive, naive meaning starting point, right? If you're not really thinking about it, the doctor does not care about the price, right? He should only care about the fit of this medication for the patient, right? So the patient actually, he gets the script, he gets the medication, and the pharmacy would send the claim, right? So the pharmacy says, I have $100 claim now. I gave the medication already, and I would ask the patient, so you would have like an insurance card, right? So which is your insurance? And they would claim it back from the insurance, right? That's the third party payout. You see that? Now there's one more complicated thing, which is in the US, which is called the pharmacy benefit manager. Honestly, I don't think it's really important, but basically the insurance says that I don't understand pharmaceuticals. So I just ask another company to help me process these claims. Okay? But the actual is the third party payer. They are the payer, right? And they are outsourcing this management to someone, the patient gets it from here. Right? Now, one very interesting, or two interesting aspects is these pharmaceutical benefit managers, they earn a percentage, a fixed percentage. Right? So I'm the insurance, and I will tell Professor Shem, he's the benefit manager. You manage all my claims, and I give you 5%. Fixed. Okay. So now you have to think about if he makes $100 or if he makes $200, he gets 5%. Where does he get more? $5% of 100 is 5. 5% of 200 is 10. But he does the same work, right? It's just papers, right? He gets the paper, and he processes the paper, and he gets 5%. So the pharmacy manager actually does not care about the price. If he cares about the price, he rather has it higher. Right? I do the same work, but I earn more. Right? Percentage is the same, but the action is more. Right? Okay, but you can say, oh, but the third-party insurer, right? They would care, right? If it's 100 or 200, they have to pay for it, right? They should care, right? But again, they are again profit-making in the US. That's a big difference between actually France and Japan and Taiwan. All of those have nationalized care. Right? US is private insurance. Right? They want to make a profit. And again, there is certain pressure, so they should have a profit of around 5%. Right? So, and then another one is if they have cost, what do they do? If their cost becomes higher, what do they do? Maybe you have heard about it. Yeah, they could change the description. But then another one interesting is that, so in France, and also in Japan, it's for sure, in Taiwan, we don't choose our health insurance, right? We are all Chempa. We are all energy. We cannot choose, right? In the US, you have, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 different health insurances, right? Pricing tends to be around the same, so how would you choose your insurance? You have to pay $500 a month. How would you choose between two different insurers? Prices are around the same. It's expensive. Yeah, can't help it.
Coverage.
Yes, right? If the price is the same, how would you choose? You would choose on service, right? Coverage, right? So actually what these insurers compete on is they compete that they cover most of the things, right? So yeah, they could say that we cover less, right? But most of the time, then the patient, the people who buy the insurance, they might switch. Right? Say, oh, Professor Shen does not cover my stem cell, but I really want to have the stem cell. I just go to another insurance. Right? So then, Professor Shen's insurance company would lose money, right? So instead, he would just say, I will just cover it. But how does he then make sure that he makes profit? He just raises the prices. Right? So, say, Professor Shen will tell me, yeah, I cover your stem cell, but you have to pay 10% more. Right? And because all the insurances are the same, pretty much all the insurances would raise the prices. Right? So that's really the problem in the US. Just you can read up on this, right? It's insurance always going up, right? Why is it? Because we want more service, right? Service is expensive. This guy doesn't really care because he's fixed percentage, right? I have to show it like this. This pharmaceutical benefit manager, right? They get 5% fixed. So the whole system actually works on high prices. Right? So that's often when I get someone who doesn't understand the market. Why does the price not go down? Would it go down? As of now, if you don't change this system, the price will never go down. Right? Because everyone, except the patient, because they pay high insurance, benefits from the high price. This is actually a little bit complicated, so I'm not sure if everyone covered it, but the key in the US really is that all the different boxes, all these stakeholders who are involved in the pharmaceutical either money flow or logistics flow benefit from high price, right? And there is no one who really has a drive to lower the price. Okay? The one normally who should actually lower prices is the one who pays for it, right? And who pays for it is the third-party payer, that's just the insurance, right? But the third-party payer, because there are many of those, right? There's not only one. They compete on service, right? So they compete on I have more coverage, and because of that, they can charge more to the insured. Right? Actually, I gave this speech once, and then people said, well, but what about people who cannot afford the insurance? Right? And yeah, that's actually the really horrible part about the US system. There are around 30 million people who cannot afford insurance. Right? It's unimaginable, I think, for anyone in France or Japan or Taiwan, that people would not be able to afford health insurance. Right? But yeah, that's the case in the US. Right? But I guess these 30 million, they don't vote all the same. Right? I guess they might be split between Republicans and Democrats and not strong enough as one lobbying power. Actually, Obamacare was basically meant to kind of help that segment, right? But sometimes also it's like, when I was 20 years old, when I came first to Taiwan, I said, I actually don't need insurance, right? I'm a healthy male, right? I told actually the president of the NHI, he's a good friend of mine, because there was a lot of Taiwanese who complained that the foreign students also have health insurance, right? And I said, the Taiwanese should be happy that I pay health insurance, because I would like to pay more than I get out, right? Or yeah, the French or the Japanese, when they come here, I guess they have to be enrolled, right? They will not use the health insurance, right? They are healthy, right? They will not have any big disease, right? The Taiwanese should be happy about this, right? It's kind of like a political thing. You don't like, everywhere else, it's not Taiwan only, everywhere you don't like the foreigners getting your service, right? But yeah, in the US, that's a big problem, that there is a lot of people who don't have health insurance. Okay. So now I use Taiwan, and again, I apologize for Japan and France. I was a little bit too lazy to look it up, but I think it's maybe a good exercise for you to understand your own health insurance system, right? But in Taiwan, Taiwan, we have one health insurance, right? And actually it's a national health insurance, right? And it actually covers pretty much everything, right? And everyone is included, right? Every one of us is part of JPA, right? Now, who pays for that JPA? Who pays for the NHI? Everyone, yes, right. Everyone, right? Actually, I always say anything which we say it's the government pays, it's actually us who pays, right? Right? And you pay tax for the government to pay, so eventually it does to pay, right? Now, here in Taiwan, if you look at it, anytime there is any discussion about raising the premium on health insurance, what do people say? Big complaints, right? Taiwanese don't like to pay more, even if you pay so little, right? Taiwanese don't want to pay more, right? It's like it's a visceral thing already, emotional, right? So what would happen, or what does actually happen anytime the NHI raises the prices? People are unsatisfied. What do unsatisfied people do? They vote for someone else. Right? You can understand, right? Yeah. So there's really a strong mandate for the NHI to manage cost. Okay? That's the first level, right? It's just the NHI themselves, they know they cannot ask for more money. More money means higher premium, right? They cannot ask because we all say no, right? And if you raise my premium, I don't vote for the party in power, right? Doesn't matter who it is, right? If it's pink or if it's yellow, right? Doesn't matter. If it's now yellow, I will vote pink. If it's pink, I vote yellow, right? I'm dissatisfied. I don't want, right? So that's the first one. There is a strong mandate to manage, right? This is the first, okay? So there is really an incentive. I don't want high price, but there's more to it. The second one is, in Taiwan, we actually have something which is called a positive list. Okay? What's the opposite of a positive list? a negative list. Okay. So Germany, for example, has a negative list. A negative list means the insurance has to pay any medication unless it's on the negative list. Okay, so everything is okay to pay except A, B, C, D, E. That's a negative list. Okay. A positive list is the insurance only pays things which are on the list. Only if A, B, C, D are on the list, then I pay. If you're not on the list, you don't pay. Right? And this one is the first because in Taiwan, if I have a new medication, I have to apply for a price. Okay? In Germany, I make a price and I start selling, and the insurance has to come to me and say, hey, see, you're selling too expensively, can we negotiate? Or they could say, no, I put you on the negative list. But in Taiwan, I have to apply first, right? And what happens in Taiwan is first you apply for 100, and for sure they first say no. Right? They always say first say no, right? And then I will go for 80 and they say no, right? And it's a long process. And what you see is in Taiwan, if I'm not reimbursed, it's very difficult to sell, right? Because people don't want to pay, right? They're not used to pay. So it's my time is ticking, right? I want to get the price. I want NHI to agree on a price, right? So I'm in the weaker position from a leverage perspective, right? And then of course another one is, and that was another question, is we also have a very efficient distribution of pharmaceuticals in Taiwan, right? What I mean is that here in Taiwan it's very, very big accounts, right? Taida, like this hospital here is a very big account. Or there's one called CGMH, Changgen. They are actually worldwide, if you look, they are one of the biggest buyers of pharmaceutical products. So what you have in Taiwan then also is that they can, so the hospital, let's say Taiwan National NTU Hospital, if the doctor prescribes a medication, the pharmacy of NTU will give you the product, right? So there's going to be a discount. NTUH will ask me for a discount. If I sell to NTU, so yeah, the NHI price is 100, but I want to buy only for 80. Right? So the hospital makes a profit even. Right? Makes a profit on it. Right? And of course, the bigger the buyer and the more sellers, the more you have again a leverage where the hospital has a higher leveraging power than the seller. Right? And so how the game works, I have a new product, I get a price of 100. NHI says, I pay 100 for this. Then I go to NTU and say, I want you to list my product, I want you that your doctors can use my product. And the purchaser of NTU will say, yes, okay, see, I'll take your product, but I want to buy it for 80, not for 100. I want to buy for 80. Yeah. So okay, I have to agree because I want NTU, so I sell it for 80, and the hospital sells it for 100 to NHI, so it makes 20 profit. Yeah. But now the NHI also knows that, right? The NHI every 6 months, I think it is, they ask everyone to show the real prices. Right? So I have to show to NHI that actually I'm selling for 80. And NTO will say, yeah, I know your reimbursement price is 100, but I'm actually buying for 80. So what does the NHI do? Every year is price cut. You've heard about price cut, right? They will reduce the price from 100, not to 80, but maybe to 90. Right? Now the price is 90, and NTO will tell me, I earned 20 before, I want to at least earn 20 again. Right? Or maybe a little bit more, so next year the price is 70. Right? That's actually also in Japan. I told my Japanese friends here. So Taiwan learned from the NHI, the Japanese NHI on the system, and then Japan NHI learned from Taiwan about pricing. So when 10 years ago, Japan price was still very good, now actually the Japanese prices are like that, Taiwan is going down very fast. And so So yeah, this is basically the difference. Really, if you look at it, pricing is kind of well, it's a negotiation, a leverage, and it's about who has the sensitivity of price, right? I guess Taiwan is really one of the lowest, right? Because all the factors work to lower price, and US actually all the factors work to higher the price. Right? But now one important for me, when I do a lot of consulting for Taiwanese companies, is if you're a Taiwanese company and you want to start develop products, you cannot use your Taiwanese experience to choose a product for the US. You understand? We are used to Taiwan, right? So I get a lot of people who will say, I have this new product. I say, what's the feature? It's cheaper. I say, it doesn't work. Cheaper does not work in the US. Cheaper works in Taiwan. Yeah? It works also in China. It works in Japan. But remember this slide. Remember this slide. You don't want to be here, right? Or Taiwan is like here, right? The development time and cost will be the same, right? So why would you go for this market here or this market here if you could go to this market here? Right? So that's the first I always tell people is, if you want to develop a new drug and your factor is price, then you will not be succeeding. I would say 99 out of 100 times you will not be successful if you want to sell it cheaper. Right? What do you have to sell? You have to sell it. Yeah, you have to sell. But what products would the US like? What do you think? What kind of products would sell in the US?
High quality.
All are same quality. Quality means that my batch to batch is the same. That's quality, right? If I buy a car today and I buy a car tomorrow, it will be the same. That's quality.
New.
New, yes, right? And something exciting, right? Fast, right? So what is fast in pharmaceuticals? Better, right? So that's not quality. Right? That's a very important thing. Quality means every time I'm doing it, I can expect the same. Right? Every time it would lower my blood sugar by 10%. That's quality. But if mine lowers the blood sugar by 10%, and Professor Shen has one which lowers it by 20%, which is better?
I agree.
Yes, right, that's it, right? You win if you're better, right? So I always say you need to have a difference which is of benefit either to the doctor or the patient, right? So what's the benefit? Yeah, it's better, it's treatment where we cannot treat before. This one you have side effects where you basically die of side effects. I don't have side effects, right? Those are the differences which are of interest for the US. You need to be better. It cannot be cheaper. It's actually the other way around. It's because I'm better, I can sell it for a higher price. Right? Everyone will be happy about a higher price and a better product. Right? You want to sell, in Taiwan you want to sell like a Toyota or a cheap car. Right? In the US you want to sell a Ferrari. You want to sell a Lamborghini, you want to sell a Bugatti, right? You want to sell a great car. So if you develop a product, you need to think about why is my product awesome? Why is it good? Right? Yeah, so sorry again for France and Japan, but look it up. Right? It's very similar more to Taiwan, right? Actually, US is really exceptionally different, right? But there is certain differences also in those markets. And I think it's interesting to understand it, right? At least if you're in the medical or pharmaceutical field, I think. Remember how big the market is, right? It tends to be 5 to 10%, 15% of GDP, right? So it's one of the biggest industrial activities in the world. Okay. Okay, but now we go to another one. Maybe I have to go a little bit faster. So this is all the top pharmaceutical companies in the world, right? J&J, Roche, Bayer, Novartis, Merck, GSK. And you see green and you see yellow. What do you think is the green and what do you think is the yellow? It's in $1 billion, so it's like $10 billion. Here it is, 10 billion. What do you think is that? Okay, tell you. This is what they spend on R&D, the green. And yellow is what they spend on sales and marketing. Right? So, pretty much, right? 3/4 of the companies actually spend more on sales and marketing than they spend on R&D. Right? It's only like Roche is about a little bit more, Merck is a little bit more, BMS. The other ones all are spending more on sales and marketing than R&D. Right? So, another one here is, yeah, we always focus on technologies, right? And we focus on the science. But it doesn't mean that even if you have a great product, it doesn't mean it will automatically sell. Right? Because if that would be the case, then these companies should just focus on R&D, right? They can change, right? It's their own decision how much to spend on R&D and on sales and marketing, right? And they are so successful, right? This is the biggest companies in the world. They should know how to sell, right? So if R&D would be so important and sell automatically, then you should spend more on R&D, right? But they don't. So for me, when we now go to the next phase of this talk is often a startup starts with an idea, right? It's often out of university or from an individual. And you want to develop the market, right? Again, now the first we have to know is, if you want to do that, only focus on the US, right? If you cannot make the US, you will not succeed, right? The second one is your product needs to be better, right? Okay, now you have those two, but now the next problem is you will need hundreds of millions of dollars to actually bring it to market, right? But I don't have. I don't think that Professor Shem has hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So he will have to get funds, right? So what do, right? So basically, you have to raise funds, right? But the problem with raising funds is that you give away ownership of the company for the money you get, right? And if you're an entrepreneur, you actually like to be in control, right? That's the reason you want to be an entrepreneur, right? So how do you do it? That's actually one of the very important things in entrepreneur. You want to partner with companies, right? You want to sell them your technology, not for your stake, but just for the technology, right? And that's now called business development, right? If you go into the pharma industry, or if you start your own company, you will hear BD and business development and licensing. It's all about how do you work with other companies together, right? And it's mainly to raise funds and to develop your product. And okay, here I sell Taiwan biotech, but it could be a French biotech, it could be a Japanese biotech, it could be anyone. What basically you want to do when you partner, you want to get your money back, right? You want to get the knowledge and the resources from this big pharma company, right? You want to be faster to market because you want to make more money, right? And you want to get cash, right? And of course you want to be having a complementary with that, right? It fits in. Right? But what's your concern? Well, you want to get some money, right? You don't want to sell yourself too cheaply, right? If you have like your new spin-off from university and I tell you I buy it for $10, Professor said, yeah, that's a little bit low, right? He would rather want to have $10 million, right? And of course, the other one is data, right? When and how do you want to give data, right? Because in the technology, eventually it's all about your data, right? When do you give it? And if you look at and for buyers are just focused, to make it simple, on the large companies, right? Let's say a Novartis or a Merck, right? What do they want, right? Actually, they want to add some products to the pipeline, right? They want to have additional revenue, but you just saw they're spending $10 billion already on their own, right? They are not really reliant on outside. They can develop products themselves. Right? It's not, we always think that they cannot develop them. Who? Now I spend maybe 50 million, they spend 10 billion, who can do better, right? So they want actually, they look at risk, right? And the time and investment, right? So that's actually often another one, which is, if you want to sell, you look at the opportunity, right? Oh, you can make so much money, you can treat so many patients. The pharmaceutical companies, they will not look at your product from an opportunity perspective. They will look at risk, meaning, if I invest in your company, what's the chance that your new concept really works? Right? Because if it's a 10% chance I give you 10 million, my cost actually is 100 million. Right? Because I would have to have 10 different ones with 10% each, that I have one chance and one wins. Right? So that's another one. I guess the next one is, if you sell a new concept, you don't sell your opportunity, you sell your risk reduction. Right? That's a little bit on what pharma companies look like, right? They look at the quality of the opportunity, meaning is it innovative? That's what I call better, right? Sorry that they say quality, I don't like quality here. Is it better or not, right? And then does it fit with their, if they're all in neuroscience and you sell them a cancer drug, they will not be interested, right? If you have neuroscience and you have something for Alzheimer, oh, okay, that's a strategic fit, right? And then they will look at the feasibility, do you have patents, safety, efficacy, right? But very, very importantly, they look at the competitiveness. And that means, how does your, even if it's theoretical product, compare to what is now on the market, right? Is it a Ferrari or is it just a Toyota? Right? Okay. Now the next one is, so, have you ever seen this? So a guy says, I can offer you 3 services. I can offer you good, I can offer you cheap, and I can offer you fast. But you can only choose 2 of them. Right? And that's actually that's a paradigm. Nobody can do all 3 together. Right? You can have a good service, you can have cheap, but it will take a long time. You can have good service very fast, but then it will be expensive. And you can have it fast and cheap, and it won't be good. Right? So if you're a pharma company, I'm selling something, the pharma company definitely doesn't want this. Right? Won't be good, they don't like, for sure not. If your product is not good, forget it. Right? And that's not only your product, it means your data. It has to be very good. Right? So if you just want to do fast something, they will destroy you. They will look at your data room and say, this is not done, this is not done, this is not done. They will never come back. So that won't work. But what they are interested in is time. They want to really have something now. Right? Because normally the CEO, he has pressure for the next year, not in 10 years. He doesn't. In 10 years, he's going to the Maldives, right? He's going to be retired. So he wants this. Good service, fast. But fast, what does that mean? It means that the pharma company actually outsources the development and the risk, right? Okay, you're developing it, it's a 10% chance, right? But actually, if you look, this is out of a lot of data, the probability of success of a pharmaceutical product is, again, on the, each individual product is different, but on the aggregate, if I look at 100 or 1,000 compounds, if you're in preclinical, you have a chance of about 7% to succeed. Right? If you're in phase 2, you have 23%. If you are filing, it's 95%. Right? So, what would the pharma company be most interested in which stage? Here, right? But that we say it won't be cheap, right? Because you basically are paying for it, right? You're moving along, right? So you invest, right? You invest not only the money, but you also invest in the probability increase, right? That's actually the value of a biotech company. I always say, what you do as a biotech company, you lower the risk for someone to come in, right? So how you add value is by lowering the risk, right? But pharma companies are happy to pay. They don't have an issue of money. right? Merck, they made, I think, $20 billion in profit last year. If they like your product, they are happy to pay, right? The question is, do they really like your product? They won't like it here. Why? You can wait, right? Nobody will jump in, right? Or actually, I have that here. They will look, they will find out, right? They see, they can compare, right? If not everyone looks at you, I can wait, we can keep in touch, right? But on the other hand, from a business development perspective, that's what you want to do if you're an entrepreneur. You want to start communication with a lot of different companies, right? How do you find them? You go to LinkedIn, you find emails, shows, there's a lot of these shows. Bio is one big show, and you don't go to Bio Taiwan. You have to go to Bio Global in the US, right? Again, forget Taiwan, right? You have to be in the US, right? CPHI, JP Morgan, you have to go there, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you say, yeah, I'm a little bit shy, I don't want to go. You have to go, right? You can hire someone who goes with you, but if you're the one who starts, you're the brain, right? The companies want to see the brain. Then, of course, it's a little bit, you have to find the right person. That's a little bit trial and error. Because Novartis is not one person, right? They have 100,000 people. How do you find that one guy who actually is interested in your product and helps you, right? You can also go to a consultant, right? But very important here for me is really, don't expect them to immediately see your product and say, oh, that's awesome, and I give you 100 million. Right? The problem is that we see the news, right? If you look at news and you always see, you see a deal, and you've never heard about the company, but they're selling for 200 million, so we estimate that they just came from nowhere, right? But you don't know the story behind, right? They might have worked already for 10 years together, right? Or Professor Shen might know this company for 10 years, and they always wanted to work with him, and now he has a product, right? So it's not that Professor Shen never did it before and he just got 100 million, it's because he had worked all the time before, right? Then you see when they get interest, you have to start sharing information, right? And here another one is, a lot of companies are very concerned about data, right? It's like, but I'm not sure what I can give or not. In my opinion, they are more afraid of using your data than you are than using the data. Understand what I mean? If they would look at your data and learn something from them and start developing their own product, and you find out, you can sue them, right? Gosh, they have so much to lose. They have like 100 billion of revenue. If you just go to the news and say, Merck stole my product, share price would go down, right? They don't want to do that. Actually, most companies, they don't even show you, they don't even want to see your data first. We say, we want to sign a confidentiality agreement. A lot of companies say, no, I don't want to sign. Just show me non-confidential data first. Right? They are more afraid that kind of someone learns and uses it than you are afraid of them stealing your data. Right? So then, you go, I call it dating, right? You share confidential information, find and say, okay, I still want to see. Then you have a lot of people, they will have a lot of people, they will have like 20, 30 people all of a sudden come in, all different names, right? And then you will discuss term sheets, and then you kind of have engagement, you have technical DD, have a contract, right? So, because of time, I have to be a little bit rushed, but this is, I get a lot of companies and they have a preclinical and about $1 billion for it. It's like, I cannot do that. I don't think anyone can help you do that. It's a process, right? It takes a lot of time. Even if you have the best product, you still have to remember this. You still have to remember this. This is biotech for me, right? Well, we do this, right? We don't forget about that one. If you're not fast, you will lose, right? So actually, this we also can strike out, right? You have to still go ahead. But why pharma companies are interested in biotech is because of this. Right? You help them move along. You're kind of like you're in insurance, right? We talked about insurance before. They develop their own product. If it doesn't work, they still have you, right? Often it's cross-functional, right? You have R&D, you have marketing. This is again today's story, right? Don't only focus on research and development. Don't focus on your technology. Really think first. what does a marketing guy think about it? And again, not a Taiwanese marketing guy, right? It has to be someone who understands the US, right? You really have to think about the US. That's basically the only market. And finance, legal, patent, right? Is all included, right? Now, how can you, a little bit of a trick, how can you get them to be involved more? Again, it's commercial trick is, if I'm interested in your technology, and Professor Sen, who is my competitor, is also interested in your technology, and we sales and marketing people, we like to talk, right? We will go for a drink and we will talk, right? So I will know that he's looking at your product, right? And I know that this lady here is also looking at your product. Then all of a sudden I become a little bit more itchy, right? If it's only me and you, then I can wait, right? Do your job, I can encourage you. But if other companies are coming in, that's basically creating a buzz, right? And then you always see, it's like all of a sudden, like this, if you now look at the biggest buzz might be a CAR-T, right? What else? Like ADCs, right? That's now the buzz, right? Everyone wants to have a CAR-T. Everyone wants to have a ADC. But again, the problem now, if you want to start, you're too late. You have to be before the bus. Right? If you now start, the bus is not going to take long because I will partner with you, and with you, the market will be quiet again quickly, right? So you have to, you start your own product, make sure it's attractive for the US market, but then you have to think, how can you actually create the buzz, right? How you can get people involved. The more companies you talk with, you find one interested, two interested, and you say, hey, yeah, company A, they are now already in due diligence, right? And company C, they're at the board level, so that creates the buzz. You don't want to chase it, you want to create the buzz behind it, right? And yeah, you have to start early on business development. It's always better early than late, right? Don't think you can just do it in your own kitchen and develop. You have to talk with people. As I said, you have to go to the shows. Even if everyone says no to you, it's like a sales, right? You go out, the doctor says no, you go back, he says no. After 10 times, he might pity you, he might like you, and he will say yes, right? Okay, yeah, this I think it's basically, well, it's not done with the signing, right? The signing is great, but actually most of the work starts actually afterwards, right? But at least once you have done that, you kind of already have established your organization and you can continue going forward. Okay, I think we are time. Okay. My company is called Anya Biopharm. I develop a technology that's called MyRJ, which enables peptide drugs, which are now also only injections, to change it to oral medication. Right? So you have people who have to take an injection every day, and it's painful, right? But it's also, you have to, injections is liquid, you have to put it in the freezer, so you have to take it out, it takes time. We think that by making it a tablet, it's much more convenient. And often the old people, they cannot do the injection themselves, right? You have to have your children or a nurse helping you, right? We think a tablet is easy, right? So we think that the convenience of our product would be interesting for the market in the US, right? So we have one product which is it's called 001, which is we just started phase 1 studies, and we have 3 products in development. And our team actually, we're spread out all over the world. I'm here in Taiwan with Vicky, Bhujan is in India, Saurabh is in India, and Catherine is in Turkey. So we have a very global virtual company. And any ideas or anything you want to share or you want to know from me, I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay, good. So that's my presentation for today. I hope it was interesting, and I'm open to any questions you have.
Alright, so thank you very much for Siggy's sharing. So we still have a little bit time. So the order is 12. So any question from the audience? Probably one or two questions, if any. Yeah, but if not, we also can, everyone can really communicate with the CK, and by email or by other means.
I have a question.
So, okay. Vanessa.
I just, okay, I just want to know that, how do you start this company? Just in the beginning that, do you own this R&D concept by yourself, like you are a researcher, or that other professor or other research, I don't know, the secret owner that come to find you and you become the co-founder of this company?
I started out as a scientist, right? So, but I wanted to be in Taiwan, and I went into sales. But I actually always had an idea, and I shared my idea with a lot of people, and yeah, it's nice. Eventually, in my previous job, I was able to earn some money. I left 2016 and decided I'd do it myself. And so I did. I found actually a university in India, ICT, which is the top university in India. I told them what I wanted to do in terms of an in vitro assay, and they ran it for me, and the results were very good. And basically, yeah, I started from that. So it's my own IP which started it, but now, of course, we build upon that. Right? We work a lot with different universities, especially on the peptides. My technology is on the formulation side, and so we use protease inhibition. And nobody else thought about that protease, that way of inhibiting protease. Right? So that's mine. From a company perspective, so we started 5 years ago. I basically financed the company myself. I spent quite a little money on that, but last year in June I got an investor on board. So I had to give up a little bit equity, but I'm still the largest shareholder of the company.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have another question. Well, you say that when your company go into like phase 3 or already have a chance to go on to have apply to the FDA license, and at that time, like big pharmaceutical company will have an investment to your company. But how about the fund in the beginning, like the preclinical phase 1 to phase 2? How is the fund going on, or you just use your own money?
Yeah, so that's the key, right? So most of the time, everyone is kind of able to do preclinical themselves, right? Don't need so much money for preclinical. Right? The big first step is phase 1. And then the next one is phase 2, phase 3. Right? So my company, we have one product in phase 1. And I'm now working very hard to find a partner to take it to phase 2. And actually, I don't want to pay phase 2 myself. Right? But if I don't find anyone, but I'm pretty sure I will, then we would have to raise funds to go to phase 2. Right? But actually, Taiwanese companies, it's very, very hard to raise enough funds for phase 3. And phase 2 is kind of already hard. It might still be possible. Phase 3 is very difficult. Phase 3, it's mostly US companies who can raise funds for phase 3. And so for Taiwanese entities, it's kind of the best is like phase 1 or phase 2 to partner. But my point is, you cannot just do your phase 2 and then think that someone will come here. You already have to tell them in phase 1 what product you do. Right? And then you tell them every quarter, you tell them your updates. And then you might have a chance that they come in phase 2. Right? You cannot just do it yourself for phase 2 and expect someone to come in. You have to tell other companies what you're doing at an early stage. Well, that actually has nothing to do with funds, right? It's if you have enough money to do it yourself, yeah, you could do it, but I think it's theoretical because it costs you, now they say the average cost is $800 million, right? Whereas if I have $800 million, I don't develop a new drug, I just go, I retire. But I don't need to work anymore, right? So why would I develop a new drug? But yeah, if you want to do merger or acquisition or licensing, I feel a lot of especially Asian companies, they really don't like to be bought, right? They kind of want to be the boss, be a Lauban, right? That one, for example, I would be happy if I can sell a company. Again, because I get money, I don't have to do any work anymore, right? Isn't that awesome? Right, so for me, it would be more like, if I cannot sell it, then I have to license it, right? But yeah, a lot of companies, I don't think it's a question. For me, it's already a decision made, right? If I have so much money, I don't do it, right? If I can sell it, I will for sure sell it, and if not, then I have to do licensing. Actually, that's a good one. I think, well, I can tell you how we select CROs, right? It's, first, you look at the capabilities, right? Of course, one very important is always cost, right? Especially for a new drug company. Even if you say that service is very important and the expertise is very important, you still are restricted by the cash you have, right? I remember I had a company in the US, and I felt they would have done an outstanding job, but they were just 3 times more expensive than the company in India was, right? Even I knew the Indian company, I would have to work more with them. But for me, for example, is if for a tip for a CRO company is, if you see a company which you yourself think has the potential. For me, for example, the CROs I chose at the beginning, I tend to go back to them now. Right? Only if they say, no, Sigi, we cannot do this, or we don't have time, then I will choose someone else. But I kind of have now my 3-4 CROs for certain topics, and anytime I have a project, I just go to the same, because I know them. Nobody is perfect, right? So you have some things they do well, some things which are tough, right? But at least I know them, right? So I know how to work with them, so I tend to continue going with the same. So I think it's, if you want to be very high priced at the beginning, yeah, it's tough. But if you start with a biotech and you go along with them, I think they tend to be very loyal as customers. I hope that helps as a question, as an answer.
All right, so I guess, yeah, this time is almost there. So I guess today we may already learn something from Sigi, talk about, so anything you want to have biotech business, so you have to be better and you have to go into the US. Right? Okay, so this is the whole concept today I learned. So I hope we probably can really think about if you want to develop your biotech business. All right. So thank you again for Sigi's sharing, and I hope everyone, if you are interested and also you want to discuss more, you can contact with Sigi. Okay, so let's thank you again, Sigi, today.
Thank you.